Okay, so welcome everybody to our STEM series on architecture and design. Here with us, we have two presenters from the UNM Indigenous Design and Planning Institute. We have Michaela Shirley and we have Chelsea Begay. So thank you both for being here with us. Just a couple of housekeeping. We are recording this session, so you can keep your camera on as you like, but either way, if we can ask that you be participatory through the chat or camera microphone as needed throughout the session. If you're not sure where your chat is, there should be a button at the bottom of your screen. It looks like a little text box and it operates just like text messaging or whatnot. At the end of the session, at about 5 minutes till the end of the session, I will put up an attendance survey link in the chat, and just make sure you complete that before you leave so you can get credit for participating today. But other than that, let's go ahead and get started. I will mute myself and go ahead and get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yat Chelsea Begay Tkatni Satni Shlike Ashche Bashishin Tkachini Ada Shachera Ashina Ada Schnell. Hello, everybody. My name is Chelsea Begay. I am Navajo from Tohajli, New Mexico, which is about 30 miles west of Albuquerque. I serve as the program coordinator for the Indigenous Design and Planning Institute. We like to call ourselves IDPI for short, and I'll let Michaela introduce herself.
Awesome, thank you, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela Shirley. I'm Navajo or Diné, originally from Kilinchi, Arizona. My clans are Twabanashlado Twirijini Bashichin, Ashiha Dashache, Maedesh Kishni Dashanella, and I'm the program manager at IDPI. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Michaela. So I am going to start sharing my screen. I worked up a couple of prezis. The first prezi will be a presentation on architecture, Indigenous architecture, or specifically Pueblo architecture, and a project that we are currently sort of working on and has been in the works for a few years now. We'll show you some of the things that we got to get done with this. So let me So can everybody see that? Yeah, okay. So like I said, this project is centered around Pueblo architecture. What we wanted to do today, I wanted to let you in on some of the really cool projects that some of us and past students have been able to work on concerning LiDAR scanning, going out to these different Pueblos. Specifically, I'm using the example of the old Zuni Mission, which is located in Zuni Pueblo, which is one of the Pueblos here in New Mexico, sort of in western New Mexico, close to the New Mexico-Arizona border. So Michaela, I'll let Michaela talk a little bit about the iArchitecture project and the museum exhibit that we have planned.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. So this is like one of like several projects that IDPI has going on right now. This is a really important project for us because when it came to the conceptual development of this project, it came about when our director and founder, Dr. Ted Hohola, who's a Isleta Pueblo, was viewing an exhibit upstairs in our School of Architecture and Planning building, and it was trying to commemorate like the 100 years of 100 architectural like strong examples of all time in the United States, and none of those 100 examples included Indigenous architecture or design. And so this project is really intending to make that statement that Indigenous architecture and design is it's something that predates a lot of the buildings that we do see today, and that even though it predates buildings that we see today in the city, in our communities, that it's relied on, you know, values and building traditions that are still very relevant to today's modern architecture and building. And so we wanted to start out with highlighting the 5 different types of contemporary Pueblo architecture. Contemporary being like post 1975. This is after the Self-Determination Act was passed by the federal government, basically allowing Indigenous or Native Americans to assert more of their own like ways of doing things, whether it's like how do they want to run their schools, how do they want to operate like their hospitals, you name it, even like how we build our homes on the res or reservations. And so with the contemporary Pueblo architecture, like Chelsea mentioned, we did LiDAR scanning for a Head Start out at Isleta Pueblo. We've done a Plaza Home out at Okewenge. And then of course, the Zuni Pueblo Mission, and forthcoming include the another school that's in the shape of a turtle out at Acoma Pueblo. And there's also a personal residence or someone's home whom she's lived in that home that was gifted to her from her parents and from her parents, from her grandparents, and from her grandparents, from her great grandparents. So there's like intergenerational passing down of homes. This person, her name is, or she's located in Santa Clara Pueblo. So if you're not sure or know, New Mexico is comprised of 19 pueblos, including the one pueblo that's out in Texas. And so traditionally, like they settle along the Rio Grande River. So we just wanted to take, you know, examples from those pueblos and in order to demonstrate like all the different types of building techniques and materials that are out there, but then also really trying to honor that like building techniques. And we're set to open up this exhibit in, I think, a couple of years at this point in the spring. Our partner is the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. If you don't know where the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center is, that's on 12th Street, just north of the I-25, and we'll be happy to share any information that you guys might have on that. But otherwise, yeah, this is a really important exhibit. We're hoping that a component of it will also be traveling, because, you know, when it comes to Indigenous architecture and design, oftentimes it's talked about in a negative way. So like, you know, it's considered primitive, which for us, you know, is kind of offensive because it's not primitive. It's still continuing to be traditions that we use today. And so it's about, you know, building awareness and education about Indigenous architecture and the different techniques that are out there, especially, you know, as we get into more of like mentoring upcoming Indigenous or, you know, Native American students who are pursuing architecture, planning, or landscape architecture. It becomes super important for that to be known, and that, you know, really breaking that stereotype too, that not all Native Americans live in teepees. So for example, Chelsea and I are both Navajo or Diné, and so we traditionally have like hogans, which is an octagonal or 8-sided like home made out of, you know, logs from like around the areas where we might go for wood hauling. So, you know, there's just different variations to the different Indigenous cultures and the way that they build for their homes. So I hope that was just a quick preview for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Michaela. We also wanted to, you know, let our students know that even though you aren't Indigenous or you aren't from a Native community, that, you know, you will come across Native people in your work, in your life, and just how do you, you know, talk to and work with different peoples. So like I said, the example that I'm using today is the old Zuni Mission, just because that's one of the components that was really fleshed out when we were working so far on this project. So I will start. So this is a really cool 3D print that that our students did a couple of years ago. This is a replica of the old Zuni mission, and this mission is still standing um, to this day. I'm right now located in Zuni, Pueblo, and if I walk outside the door, this mission is right outside the door, so it's in the plaza, and people still walk by it, walk around it. It's a prominent place in the community. So this model is to scale, and it's located in our office right now, and you can pick it up. It's a little fragile, but you can pick it up and you can see different parts of this model, and it is to scale. So you can see the different vigas, you can see the Canalis, the Adobe that is sort of plastered on the model. The students tried to replicate it as best they could, along with the color of the building. So this is a pretty great, accurate replica of the model. And so what I wanted to get out of this session today was for you students to be able to look at these different architectural elements within this building and be able to look around in maybe your own community or communities that you visit and say, hey, that's Viga, that's a Canale, those are different Pueblo elements that are present in the buildings that we see today. So I hope that you'll get some of those terms out of this session today. So this is a current picture of the mission. This is taken from the front of the mission, and you can see, there's the cross, there's the doors, and the plaster. Some of it is coming off, and I'll get into a little bit of what the findings were with this building and why we thought it was a really important just architecture to display in an exhibit. So some of the background of the Zuni Mission is that the old Zuni Mission was originally built in 1629 as a mission for the reservation, and has later on become a tourist destination. The mission always served the public more than it served an individual. So it's a community element. It was an element of the community. The old Zuni Mission's last restorative effort took place in 1969. During that renovation, the Zuni Tribal Council did not establish a process of how the mission should be renovated. They didn't really do a lot of research on the different techniques of restoration. At the time, people did not know that concrete traps moisture within adobe walls. And as a result of that, over time, the adobe bricks inside of it, since it's made of different elements of the earth like dirt and straw and clay, it sort of returned back to that those original elements that it's made up of, and only the sort of concrete or stucco cast remains of that. And currently the Zuni Mission is structurally unsafe for entry, so nobody can go in there. It's closed to the public and most members of the Pueblo. the Zuni Tribal Council, religious leaders, and the tourism department right now must determine what the mission their purpose will be once it could be renovated. Recently, the Tribal Council and tourism started trying to look more into um, how the deteriorating condition of the mission will affect the restoration process. So this is what the Zuni Mission looked like before the restoration back in 1860s. You can see the adobe bricks that are put up, and the people are there to scale how big the mission really is. So some more history. The old Zuni Mission was originally constructed by the Pueblo of Zuni and the Franciscan Catholic Spanish. The building was originally used for religious services and features many elements with religious influence such as the double doors, the church bell, and the altar. After support for the mission from the Catholic people ended in 1822, the building took on different traits influenced by the Zuni culture in absence of that Spanish influence. So the Zuni people really started to see this mission as their own and started to embrace that. The old Zuni Mission is a unique blend of cultures balancing two influences of style. An element that solely expresses Zuni culture is in the murals, which you will see at the end of this particular presentation. Using the LiDAR techniques that we did, we took video and pictures of the old Zuni Mission to see the condition of that structure. And what we were able to do is sort of a really neat fly through, and it sort of reminds me of a video game. So if you come into an architecture program, there's a lot of different software programs that you get to learn, and LiDAR scanning was one of those that we specifically got to learn through this exhibit. So talking about terms that we wanted to get out of this session, one of those terms is Adobe. So Adobe is a heavy clay soil used to make sun-dried bricks. And I think Michaela can say a little bit more about the Adobe Making and some of the work that ITPI has been able to do with students on the Adobe Making process.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. So we partner a lot with our colleague Francisco Ubina. He's located in the same school where our office is located. He does a lot of historic preservation work. And so we've had experience working with children, actually, Pueblo children from all the different 19 Pueblos for one summer where they spent 3 days with us, just learning, what is Adobe and how is it gathered from like the land, and then how it's like mixed and formed into bricks, and then they ended up making a cool whole little village of a little Adobe of bricks that they had. And this is really important because this knowledge is also being something that's being forgotten because there is that imposition of like different housing alternatives, like your pitchfork homes that you might see in a single family housing development, which is not bad, but we would prefer to see more traditional buildings in our tribal communities because it informs a lot of like our worldview and our culture and like how we see things, and Also, it's really tied to like our languages. So there's an ability for us to really understand more concretely, just like our ancestors, how it is that we should be living, or how it is that we should be like building our homes. And Chelsea's been talking a lot about the LiDAR scanning, and that's a technology that if you're not aware of yet, I'm going to provide a link to a short article um, that can give you some more information about it. And this is where we're seeing an intersection of like science and engineering with like architecture and design, which, you know, we're really excited about because with the LiDAR technology, it also enables us to take like how we did a scanning of a building, and that was done 2 years ago. And so it's a collection of like millions of data points that end up making an image. And so I guess if you want to imagine it, it's like a picture. If you keep zooming in on that picture, you'll notice that there's pixels, and so the pixels make up that picture. And so why this technology is important in this information is because what we'll notice is that over time, buildings will shift. Either it's because the foundation on which the building sits is moving, or it's the building itself that's structurally like leaning because maybe there's the timber that's used in the church, for example, that might be, you know, deteriorating, or like Chelsea was saying, there's the moisture that might be building up in the walls. So it's a really helpful information that's going to be useful. And should there be a need for, you know, a total reconstruction of the Zuni Mission Church, like the LiDAR scan would enable us to rebuild that from scratch, which is exactly that model that Chelsea showed in the beginning.
Thanks, Michaela. And talking about how buildings shift and can cause some damage over time. You can see it in this picture. This is a picture of the one of the walls of the mission, and you can see how it's kind of it was phrased in the text as an elephant foot. So you can see it's kind of bulging out at the bottom, and that's where that Adobe has sort of deteriorated and turned back into its sort of natural state and started to settle down and expanded at the bottom of the wall. So you can see this elephant foot. From this elephant foot, you get cracks that are happening on the outside of the building as well as the inside of the building. And so when we got to see the inside of the building, we saw all these cracks and parts of the wall sort of coming off. And one of the concerns about that was some paintings, a mural that is inside, painted directly onto the wall, and how what kind of technology can we provide, can we look into to help to sort of save that mural that is really important to the community and tells them a lot of their sort of traditional stories. So a couple more terms that we thought was really neat to learn about was the term vigas, and I can never say this word. Michaela, can you pronounce the bottom one? Yes. So these sort of go hand in hand. Vigas are wooden beams that lay across the ceiling and are common architectural elements in Adobe-based buildings. And latias are usually sort of make up that ceiling that goes between the vigas. And so I'll show you a couple of examples of what that looks like. So the picture on the left with the lights here. You can see the vigas. They're the huge sort of rounded elements in the picture, and the latillas are the smaller ones that are between the vigas. And then you can see that again in the picture in the right, where the viga is the darker color wood, and the latillas are the smaller wood pieces that go between that. So I only knew about vigas when we first did this project. I had no idea about the other one. But Michaela, do you have any information? Because I know you previously stated that, you know, we usually, when we're building structures, we use a lot of the materials that are local to us.
Yeah, I think that really sums it up. I know that even like the names that are used to describe the different aspects of the church are Spanish derived. So like there's also an important element to even the contemporary in Pueblo contemporary architecture project where, excuse me, we're trying to ask how is it that you describe like this part of the building in your traditional language, because I think there's even that element of like the architectural language, traditional architectural language that, might be recovered during this project. And so I think that's something that we're really excited for. Um, and so I think that's important because again, it's like the language and the buildings and the landscape and the natural elements. It's all tied to like our whole human existence and experience in our native communities.
Thanks, Michaela. The next sort of element will go by pretty quick. It's the Canalis. These are sort of round roof drains. They're supposed to help because most Pueblo architecture have the flat roofs. So you need a way for moisture to sort of get off of that roof. And the Canalis are supposed to serve that purpose. In the Zuni Mission, those worked and didn't work, which is how moisture got trapped inside of the structure and started to deteriorate that adobe. So that is the end of that example. I'll show the fly through through the building actually, which we were able to gather from the LiDAR scanning that Michaela talked about. So this is a video. It doesn't have sound. And can you all see that? Yeah, okay. So I'll play the video right now. It's just a minute long, but it plays like a video game. I've watched my sister play Minecraft, and so this is definitely what it reminded me of. Yeah, so we're going through the front part of, or the main area of the Zuni Mission, going up towards the altar. And then we'll hit these different points. And these points were set up when we were doing the LiDAR scanning. So the camera captured these different areas. And so going up the stairs, and you see the vigas, and then going down. And on each side, you see the murals that we were talking about. And so this was a really cool way for us to show what the inside of the mission looked like and some of the damage that we were able to see. And we could show this to people without actually putting them in danger, and just making it aware for people, especially the community. Michaela, did you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, the artist that we were talking about, his name, he's a Zuni Pueblo person who since passed, unfortunately, but his name is Alex Iotua. And he was called the Michelangelo of the Southwest. Again, it's like, you know, it's this, how do you preserve this mural or these murals that are inside the church? Because it's a part of the Zuni Pueblo people's history, as well as like, you know, what's important to save for the future generations. Because in our line of work, it's really important for us to think, and Chelsea will get more into this when she talks about our philosophy at our institute, but you'll notice that, you know, it's important for that intergenerational knowledge transfer to happen, because there's all of these different impositions that have come into Native communities, like by way of housing that we talked about, or even, you know, you might have heard about like education or boarding schools from a long time ago, where there's been just different impositions from the outside that are affecting either positively or negatively, like our way of life and how we continue to live it or not live it. And so I think this is an important example of also just how we collaborate with other partners. The LiDAR technology that was used to document this building and the other scans was from the Navajo Technical University. They're a tribal college that's located on the Navajo Nation. They're doing a lot of cool like rocket science kind of stuff out there. So it's really interesting how, you know, that takes place there too in Crown Point, New Mexico. But otherwise, yeah, I'll leave the rest of this presentation to Chelsea. Thank you so much, Chelsea. And you know, Chelsea will share our contact information. I actually have to jump off right now for class, but it was really awesome to see you all. And thank you, Anita, for this opportunity, and nice to see you, Kim. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chelsea.
Thanks, Michaela. So if there's not any questions, I'll wait for any questions from anybody about the Zuni Mission and the LiDAR scanning or the video, or even some terms. If you can let me know if you've seen any Adobe structures, where have you seen Vegas, and some of the other terms, the Canalis and the Latias.
I was going to say, here in Las Vegas and throughout the neighboring, say, ranch communities around here, that style is actually fairly common. My mom was raised, or in her neighborhood, she was in like an Adobe Home, and a lot of the homes here, the historic homes, older homes, all have vigas and latias there. That's just a common style out here, so it's nice to see around.
Yeah. I see in the chat, let's see, there are a lot of manufactured Adobe homes now. Yeah, definitely. We see that a lot of stucco homes, a lot of what? Oh, the HUD homes. No problem. My partner here is from Zuni, and so he knows a lot about the church. Yeah, so across Indian country and a lot of tribal and native communities, you come across homes and structures that are from the government, and those structures usually don't kind of stand out in the community because, you know, they're trailer homes, they're what we call HUD homes, where we sort of call them cookie cutter homes, where everything kind of looks the same, and there's really no personal touch to those homes. My partner grew up in an Adobe home, and he always talks about how just the smell and the feeling of being in that home and being able to lick the walls and feel that mud, and taste that mud on your tongue. And I mean, in the home that we're at now, which is renovated, you can't do that. Yeah. Okay. Jacqueline's, her neighbor has an Adobe Home. And like Michaela said, that our homes, our traditional homes, usually consist of materials that we can gather locally, because in Navajo, there's not usually, in most areas, there's not a lot of trees around. So the hogans that are usually seen usually have wood, round logs, it's constructed of. But where I'm from, there's not a lot of trees around there, so we use a lot of adobe and then a lot of mud. That's what our hogans are usually made out of. So thank you for sharing all of your thoughts and insights on this. Rico says, I come from the Pueblo of Acoma. When I go up to the rock, all houses are made of adobe and other types of materials that we don't use rarely today. And definitely in our architecture program, Michaela mentioned our partners, other professors are definitely trying to look back and go back and see what the area looked like before and how the structures were before, and taking little elements of that and putting it back into the buildings that are designed now. And we see that with a lot of Indigenous architectures that are up and coming now, who have their own firms. Not all structures are built like a hogan in Navajo. Hogans are specific to homes and ceremonies. So to construct, all of these sort of cookie cutter homes that are shaped, that look like hogans, really isn't what a lot of people want these days. They want little things that remind them of, their grandma or their parents, whether it's your home, the doors facing east. A lot of Navajos prefer their homes that way, or having a fireplace, something small like that, but very significant. So I'll read a little bit more of the comments. Jaden is Navajo. Yat-eh. I hope you're learning your language and some of the traditions and culture. Destiny comes from the Pueblo of Acoma. And when she grew up, she saw how the Adobe homes have evolved and how materials used to build the new houses in her Pueblo are more new. And Pueblo is actually a really good example of how designers got a little bit more smart on how to construct homes for a lot of people. They went back and used the designs and created homes that people wanted to be in, because if you look into these sort of housing areas, you see a lot of homes that are abandoned, and you see a lot of crimes in those areas. So how do you make a community like that more safe? How do you make people want to stay in those homes for a long time? And a lot of that is making it multi-generational. So, living with your parents and also bringing in your grandparents sometimes. When I was little, my parents went to work, and I got to stay with my grandparents and my great grandma. And my great grandma was the sheep herder. She had sheep and a sheep camp. And so some of my greatest memories was going out with her to the sheep camp and learning how to take care of sheep. And so now in my current position, in my current job, I take a lot of those teachings and sort of help to mentor students that are coming through our program. So I'll talk about our institute. I know I have a little bit more time with you guys, so I'll talk a little bit about the institute that we work at, some of the mission and goals of our institute, and then a little bit more about my education and how I came to the position that I'm in now. So I'll share my screen again. And we will look at this Prezi. So we are, like I said, the Indigenous Design and Planning Institute. We're housed in the UNM School of Architecture and Planning. So our building, if you've ever been to Albuquerque, we are on Central and Stanford, I believe. We're right across from the UNM bookstore. We're right across from the Frontier. So when we're in the building, you know, we usually like to take our students and have lunch at the Frontier, go check out the bookstore. Our building is, I believe, about 5 stories high. So when you get to the top of the building, it's all encased in glass. So when you get off of the elevator at the sort of highest floor of our building, which is the library, you get a really great view. You get a really spectacular view of Albuquerque. You can see down Central. You can see the Sandia Mountains, which is one of my most favorite places to study and to hold group meetings. So a little bit about ITPI. These are some of the posters that we get to put up during when students visit our school and our space. So we like to show off some of the work that we have done throughout the years. This first panel right here is from San Ysidro. Michaela mentioned that there are 19 pueblos, and there is one pueblo that is located in El Paso, Texas. So this is one of the first projects that ITPI was able to do with the community. And in this project, the community members told ITPI, you know, come up with a plan for our community. We want to get back to our roots. We want to get back to who we are as people. And in the end, Michaela and Ted and the team, they made a presentation back to the community, but specifically to the children of the community, to the kids of the community, the high school students, the mid-school students, because in the end, those students are the ones who are going to inherit that community. So for them to understand what is going on in their community was really important. So about our institute, we were created in the fall of 2011. So we've been around for a few years, for about 10 years now. Our goal is to educate and inform Indigenous design and planning by engaging our faculty and our students and the professionals in the field and community leaders to talk about and incorporate culturally responsive practices. And in that, we work with 3 different areas. We work within the academic area, which is our school. We work with professionals in case professionals need the assistance of us. We are there to help them. And then if tribal communities come to us with different projects that we're able to help them with, then we certainly try and do that. Whether it's creating a course around their project and inviting students to come and help us, or we hire students individually within the 3 different programs, which is architecture, landscape architecture, and planning, and see how what they've learned so far in their studies can help us to help these tribal communities in some of their projects. Our team, you met Michaela. This is our director. His name is Ted Hohola. He is from the Isleta Pueblo. He is in the community and regional planning program. So he's a really funny guy. And if you ever get a chance to come to the school, definitely stop by and we'll let you meet him. He has a lot of jokes. And then there's Michaela and I. Michaela, of course, is our program manager. She's also a student. She's in a doctorate program, so hopefully pretty soon you'll know her as Dr. Michaela Shirley. And then there's me. I am Chelsea. I am also a student. I'm a graduate student, so I graduated in my undergrad at UNM and came up to the master's program. And we just hired a new member of our team. So our team is pretty small. This is Isaiah Smith. He's Navajo. He helps us with our multimedia. So he has a background in film and digital. So he helps us with a lot of projects concerning how to film, how to tell a story with our projects. So our mission, like I said, we work in 3 different ways. We work with the academics, we work with tribal communities, and we work with professionals who are either tribal members or are working with tribal communities. So a lot of times it's like, well, what can IDPI do for students? What we can do for students is connect them to various tribal communities, if not your own tribal community, and see what kind of projects are out there for students to work in and about. So sometimes we'll, like I said, create a course that students can enroll in, or we can actually hire students to help us work on these projects. And we've done a lot of those in the past. So some of the, we talk about our work in a sort of 7 generations model, where you see yourself in one of these areas, whether you've just been born, or you're a teenager, or you're an adult, or you're an elder. So when we do planning, we see ourselves in the middle, and we take those stories and lessons from our parents and our grandparents and use that to help inform different buildings and different programs within our communities, and make sure that we're thinking about our children and our grandchildren in the future, who are going to inherit this community and these programs, and make sure that our culture and our tradition are part of that community, and that helps to shape the person. So when you're young, hopefully you have your role models who are your parents and your grandparents, and they're teaching you maybe your language, they're teaching you all these different traditions. And then once you get into adulthood, you create these multi-generational places, like a home, like programs within your community. And then as an elder, you pass on your knowledge and your tradition to the next generation. And so this is just a little river diagram talking about the different projects that we have been able to do in those 3 different areas. So academic, tribal, and professional, starting from the beginning of IDPI to sort of right now. So in the beginning, we've helped with different plans, and now we're talking about creating specific programs within the school that involve Indigenous planning. And so some of the local projects that we've had, you can see the stars in the blue are projects that we've completed. So we've done projects, like I said, in Zuni, Pueblo, which is over on the left, and Cochiti, Pueblo, all the way up to Taos, Pueblo. And then you have projects that are being negotiated right now, and ongoing projects. And we're not just local within New Mexico. We're trying to extend our programs out to the different hemispheres. So in the South, we're looking at projects in Mexico and in Ecuador, and how are those Indigenous communities, what kind of projects are in those Indigenous communities that we can help out with, and our students can help out with, because we do a lot of traveling abroad. So if you're into that and you're ready to learn Spanish and um, talk to these different communities, we definitely welcome you and hope that you will consider architecture, landscape architecture, or planning. So just talking about sort of the admissions process to architecture school or architecture and planning school. When I was in high school, I always thought that I was going to go into architecture. I wanted to go into architecture. I saw a need in my community because a lot of our homes and a lot of our buildings in my community were falling apart. They were really old, and my mom worked in the community. And so I used to go to her office, and sometimes she was set up in a really old building that didn't have any air conditioning, or she was set up in a sort of a trailer to do her work. And so when I was asked what I wanted to do in the future, I said I wanted to create buildings and places within my community that could help and grow our community. And so I was a high school student maybe 10 plus years ago. And looking back now, it's progress is very slow process. Progress is it takes a lot of time. So when I got into college, I took an architecture 101 class, and that class taught me a lot about different architecture around the world, and it really overwhelmed me. And so I went back to my advisor, to my advisor, and I said, I don't know if I can do architecture. A lot of the stuff is just over my head. I'm intimidated. I don't know if, I can plan these buildings within my community. And so my advisor told me, hey, don't get overwhelmed. There's other programs within the school that you need to look at. And she pointed me to a class in community and regional planning. And that specific class was Introduction to Environmental Problems. And so in that class, I got to learn about different places around the world again, but this time around watersheds and water. And I said, hey, that's exactly what I wanted to. I want, because community, they used to plant, they used to have a lot of livestock around, but as water became scarce, a lot of people sort of didn't do that anymore because it cost too much to haul water or haul hay for sheep and horses and cows, or the land just wasn't viable to do agriculture anymore. The corn wasn't coming up like it used to. So I wanted to figure out and take different examples from all around the world that I could bring back to my community and say, hey, have you guys considered any of these restoration projects to help with the water situation? So that's what got me involved in, or that's what kept me at the School of Architecture and Planning. And that's what's keeping me here now. The only thing that I have to do for my upcoming way to graduate is to create a plan for my community, a land use plan. How are we going to utilize the land in the future? So that's a little bit about, how to apply to UNM. I'm sure you'll get a lot of really good, you'll get some really good information from when you are a senior or just about to graduate high school. But these are some of the cool pictures that we got to do, some of our students, some of our events that we get to do. So thank you so much. We have a website, we have social media. you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But if you have any questions, I'm open for questions. And I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, and just for everyone on the line, as you're thinking of your questions, I did go ahead and put the link, the attendance link and the survey into the chat log. So definitely make sure you open that and complete that before you leave, again, to get credit for participating in today's session. We'll keep the session open for about 4 more minutes. So are there any questions? Either feel free to turn on your microphone, or as mentioned, go ahead and type it in the chat.
Yeah, and it's great to see that there's a few Native students on here. So I hope you've been inspired to look at your own community and see what needs are in your community, and how maybe architecture, planning, or landscape architecture can help to improve the conditions of your community in the future. For students who are interested in architecture, what jobs would they be best fitted for on the Navajo Nation? So for architecture, definitely on the Navajo Nation, you don't see a lot of Navajo architects. There's a handful of them, but they are wearing themselves thin with all the projects, all the different buildings that are coming up on Navajo, whether it be a hospital or homes, especially the home situation. People are wanting to not live in a cookie cutter style home. They want to be able to have a say so in the style and design of the home that they're going to be living in for hopefully generations to come. If a home has a special meaning to you, you'll take care of that home and you'll pass it on to your children, and your children's children will have that home for a long time, hopefully. Thank you guys for spending time with me. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. I hope you got just a little bit, if not interest in architecture and planning. We're working from home now because of COVID, but we're hopefully going to start classes in the fall again. And we love visitors at our office. We love to give tours. Anita says, what classes should students take in high school if they want to go into architecture? We used to, some of the requirements for the architecture program was a lot of math classes, but that has certainly hasn't been the case lately, because we are doing a lot of recruitment of students, especially students from around the area, local to New Mexico. So definitely drawing, sketching is something that that the architecture program is. There's a lot of sketching that happens, whether it's just sketching a building, sketching the landscape. If you do at least 1 or 2 sketches a day and get the feeling of, how to do shading, how to do perspectives, that really works a lot. Math, how to make a straight line. A lot of people don't know how to do that. So just being an all-around student is really helpful coming into the architecture program. You're going to have a lot of late nights. You're going to have a lot of group projects. So being a team player is really important. Thank you. Eureka says, this has brought so much attention to me because I'm Native and interested in agriculture, architecture, and engineering. Thank you for that. Yeah. Definitely come to our school and set up an appointment with us. I just got really into agriculture right now. During COVID, we were staying home, so my partner did a garden like 10 years ago, and so we were staying home and we're like, we need something to do, let's start a garden. And so we were able to plan out our garden, see what kind of plants it was right for our type of soil, for our type of arid landscape. So that came in handy when I talked to, some of my landscape architecture friends, seeing what kind of plants are good for the environment. Yeah.
Well, I think that was a great comment to end our session on. I think it was thank you for your time, for being so informative, and just for, bringing a new perspective to things for our students. So again, last reminder before we log out of this meeting, students, make sure you have pulled up the SurveyMonkey or the link on a separate window, because as the Zoom closes, the link will go away. So make sure to open it and then you can complete it, again, to get credit. But thank you all for your time. And as an announcement for anyone here on the line, look for information for our STEM series finale coming out. So our finale of our STEM series for the school year will happen on May the 11th, where we will be hosting the filmmaker or director of the film Coded Bias. So they will be joining us here on May 11th. So we'll be kind of keep an eye out for that. By the end of this week, we'll start doing promotion for our next series and hope you guys can join us. But thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon.